Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's story explores family, power, dynamics, and the consequences of being underestimated. If you have ever felt judged or overlooked, this will resonate. It's about choosing observation over reaction, allowing others to reveal themselves before you reveal your strength. This is not just a dinner story, it's a lesson in patience, respect, and the quiet impact of proving others wrong without saying word.
Imagine you're sitting at a table where every smile has a secret, every toast feels like a dare, and every set of eyes is waiting for you to crack. That's where I was. 7 years gone, not a single call home, and suddenly thrust back into the one place I swore I'd never see again. There's this moment, right before the first course, when everything seems almost normal. The lights are too bright, the wine is too sweet, and the only thing sharper than the silverware is the tension, buzzing underneath the linens. That's when Carla, my sister, my nemesis in a silk blouse, caught everyone's attention, raised her glass, and with that serpent smile said, "Don't you love how family always comes crawling back?" The laughter splintered the room, bouncing off the walls, turning everyone but me into an instant insider. My hands itched, the urge to disappear, to sink into the chair and let the old ghost version of me take all the hits. But I held myself still, too proud and too tired to let them have the satisfaction. I shouldn't have been surprised. The invitation came wrapped in obligation, not affection. Mom's handwriting on the envelope was all swirls and guilt. Nothing about missing me, just attendance expected. Dinner at 7. Dad hadn't even signed it. Yet there I sat, in between cousins who barely remembered how to talk to me, and an uncle who kept whispering that in his day, people didn't make drama for attention. I wanted to scream. It took everything not to. But I'm not here to get your pity. I'm here because I know what happens when you let the wolves circle. I'm here because for once I didn't run. I let every dig, every sideways glance, every remember when you vanished on us, land exactly where they wanted. I wanted to see how far they'd go, how much they'd laugh, before they realized how much they'd miscalculated. Before I go further, let me be clear. Maybe you've been here too. Maybe you've walked into a room and felt everyone weigh you, judge you, decide you belong on the menu and not at the table. If you have, you're not alone. Take a breath, hit like, subscribe, and drop your city in the comments. It means more than you know. I built my spine out of stranger stories, and maybe after you hear mine, someone else will build theirs from yours. Back to the dinner. Carla was in her element. Years hadn't softened her. If anything, 7 years of me missing made her bolder. She recounted horror stories about impossible clients at her real estate firm, swooned over her new car, leased but who's asking. Aden reminded the room how good it felt to finally be surrounded by family that actually shows up. Every reference to me was a joke. Bet the prodigal one doesn't even know how to set the table anymore. My own mother actually snorted into her wine. Dad just watched, stone-faced. But when I caught his eye, he looked away and adjusted a napkin for the third time. That told me everything I needed to know. I thought about walking out. Again, I thought about what 7 years away had given me the chance to become the kind of person who can take a joke without crumbling, the kind who learned the hard way that some people need you weak so they can feel strong. I remembered every lonely night in my first apartment. Every time I'd turned my phone off and forced myself to build peace out of silence. I told myself just one meal. Let them do their worst. Main courses arrived. Carla doubled down, making snide comments about my career hiatus. How freedom looks good on you, if you don't mind living off the grid. My uncle asked, "So what is it you actually do anyway?" But nobody really cared about my answer. They were just preparing the next punchline. I felt heat rising in my face. Not from shame, no, those days were over. It was something colder, more precise, control. I smiled, met Carla's eyes, and let her have the last word on my glamorous bum life. Then, right before dessert, she unspooled her big news. Well, at least one of us is doing something important. I was just promoted, managing the city's biggest private client account for Everett and Gray, it's confidential. Obviously, She looked around for applause. Mom practically glowed. Even Dad seemed to unfreeze a bit. I gave her that, let the applause echo around her. Let her soak up the validation like sunshine she'd been starving for. The room felt tight around me. I looked down at my hands, saw them resting on a slim leather folder tucked under my chair, a talisman I'd brought for my own peace of mind, never truly expecting to use it. But everything aligned in that moment. The laughter, the pride, the sheer confidence of people who believe they know the end of your story. So, as the table quieted, I carefully placed the folder onto the white linen, slid it with 2 fingers toward Carla, and said just above a whisper, "You do realize you're talking about my account, right?" Every head swiveled. Carla's smile froze in place, confusion blooming into a flash of panic. She opened the folder. What she saw changed everything. The silence that followed was as thick as velvet, suffocating, wrapping the entire table in a palpable shock. Carla held the folder as if it might burn her, her eyes flicking desperately over every page. Her voice, usually so sharp, had softened. "What is this, some kind of joke?" Her hand shook slightly, not enough for anyone but me to notice, but enough for me to savor. For the first time in a room packed with family, I felt gravity shift in my direction. My mother noticed something was off before anyone else. "Carla?" she asked, the first trace of real anxiety leaking into her voice all evening. Carla ignored her, reading deeper, her face turning the same pale hue as the tablecloth. Dad reached over, trying to pull the folder away. But Carla snapped it shut and nearly dropped it. I took a sip of water and watched. The faces around me, the way laughter, twisted into confusion, pride into suspicion, curiosity into fear. This was it. The illusion crumpling, one piece of paper at a time. "Is this real?" my uncle finally said, trying to sound amused but his voice wobbling. "Don't play games. We're celebrating tonight." I leaned forward, meeting my sister's stunned gaze. "Carla, that contract you've been bragging about? I signed it months ago under my company's name. You're managing my portfolio. You've been sending me monthly updates, actually." She stared, eyes locked onto mine. I could see her replaying every email, every polite, distant message I'd sent with a pseudonym. Every time she clicked send and never realized who was on the other side. Dad's voice boomed, a desperate effort to regain control. "Why would you do that to your own family?" His stare was both angry and pleading. "Do what?" I asked, keeping my tone even. "Have a life you didn't know about. Or let myself be ridiculed before, reminding you that I'm more than the kid you remember?" That's when Mom snapped. "How dare you bring business into family? You're just trying to embarrass us." Her voice wasn't quite as strong as she wanted. The cousins and uncles started whispering. The aunts exchanged looks. The dog scratched at the glass, sensing a different kind of tension now. One even a loyal pet can't fix. I made a choice then, to tell the truth. The whole truth, not just for vengeance, but for release. I left because you needed a scapegoat, and I was tired of the role. But while you were busy mocking me, I built something on my own. Yeah, 7 years away. 7 years building a portfolio, starting a business. Learning the world doesn't end when people laugh at you. Mom's lips moved, but no sound came out. Carla looked down at her plate, the bite of tiramisu she'd been holding now forgotten. Dad tried to recover with some lecture about humility, but his voice faltered. One cousin finally broke the tension. "Wait, you actually own all that?" The room craned for confirmation, hoping for a punchline. "Yes," I answered. No apology, no qualifiers. I've managed investments for more than a dozen companies. Carla's is just the newest. The energy shifted. There was suspicion, sure, but also something else. The realization that every barb, every family joke, every time I'd been ignored or mocked, they'd been mocking a person they didn't know. Carla mustered a final defense. Why didn't you just tell us? Why go behind our backs?" I shrugged, voice deliberately calm. "Why do you assume you would have listened? For years, you only saw me as a problem. Maybe I wanted to see what it feels like when all your certainty turns out to be fiction." The table was silent. except for the sound of forks scraping nervously at empty plates. I could see the gears turning. Who else might have secrets? Who else could flip the script? Who is safe to mock, and who is quietly keeping the receipts? Mom, at last, looked at me, not through me. "So now what?" she asked quietly. I glanced around. Now nothing. Dessert's good. Eat it before it melts. The relatives did eat, but the jokes never returned. The evening's last act was a slow unwinding. Relatives leaving early, Dad excusing himself with work emails, Mom retreating into the kitchen. Carla sat in stunned silence, folder still clutched in her hand like a lifeline unraveling. I sat at the table, letting the moment linger. No regret, no doubt, just a thin thread of unexpected peace weaving through me. I watched the candles burn lower and listened as the room's energy shifted from a storm to the awkward hush after lightning has passed. After the last guest left, Dad returned. He didn't yell. He didn't explain. He just looked at me, really looked. The way he used to when I was 5 and scraped my knee. "You didn't have to humiliate her," he said, but his tone was different. Not angry, but wounded. I stood collecting my folder and my dignity. Maybe next time, don't humiliate the people you love just to feel better about yourself. He nodded almost imperceptibly. On my way out, Carla stopped me in the hall, her usual bravado gone. How did you build all that?" she whispered. I put a hand on her shoulder. Sometimes the key to growing is leaving the greenhouse. On the drive home, I realized it wasn't revenge or triumph. I felt it was relief. Relief that the truth, even when uncomfortable, could cut cleaner than any insult ever could. The road home was empty, city lights warping in the rain-streaked windshield, and for once I felt weightless as I drove. Not victorious. That would mean I still needed to win something from them. Not vindicated. I'd stopped craving that a long time ago. Just free. My phone buzzed once in the passenger seat. No one ever called after these dinners. I let it go to voicemail. The next morning, I woke up to messages. Not apologies, but tentative attempts at understanding. Carla's was first. "I need to know more about what you do." Was it all real? There was something small in her words. A humility she never let anyone see. Mom's message was a single line. "Why didn't you ever teach us how to be better?" That one took my breath. Dad's last was as practical as a weather report. Family's complicated. Come for coffee. The week that followed was different than any other in memory. My phone was quieter than I liked, but the silence was not empty. It was pregnant with possibility. Carla emailed, asking for a second chance. Her pride still fighting, but her curiosity bleeding through. Mom sent a photo of an old birthday cake I'd once made. No note attached. I never replied right away. I read and reread, letting them sit with what they now knew. Sometimes distance is the only language a family understands. I found myself returning to work sharper than ever. I poured myself into meetings, new clients, the business I'd built in the dark, now finding joy in the daylight. Oddly, strangers at work seemed to see me more clearly than my own blood ever had. I started walking to the office every morning, headphones tucked in, and allowed myself, finally, to feel proud. But family gravity is real. 2 weeks after that dinner, Dad invited me to a quiet brunch. No lectures, no guilt trips, just eggs and coffee and awkward questions he'd never dared to ask when I was a kid. He wanted to understand, truly, for the first time. I told him it wasn't magic, just resilience, just making peace with being underestimated long enough to learn. Patience, Dad's eyes went wet. I wish I'd known how strong you were, I smiled. I always wished you hadn't needed proof. Carla and I met in a small cafe near her office. She was jittery, tapping the table with nervous fingers. "Did I really work for you and not realize?" she blurted. I slid her the contract. "Read the email chain. You were respectful, professional, just not curious. You never checked the signature. Most don't." She nodded, chewing her lip, eyes glassy. "I was jealous of you and just didn't even really know why." I reached for her hand. "It doesn't matter now, does it? You get to choose whether you let envy keep you small." Her laugh was raw. After that dinner, I'd rather try new things than mock people who already do. We didn't hug. It wasn't that easy. But we both left lighter, shells cracked just enough to let real things through. As for Mom, it took her longer. Weeks passed before she texted again. Are we allowed to ask for another chance? That word, allowed, stayed with me. I answered with the simple, I hope so. Let's talk. Healing doesn't come with an announcement. It arrives in missed calls returned, in questions bravely asked, in invitations offered with no obligation. The next family dinner was smaller, looser at the seams, no performance. Just people, trying. They still brought up the old wounds sometimes, jokes that died midair, patterns that tried to return but couldn't stick. But something new thrived, authenticity, clumsy and sincere. We laughed, not at each other but with each other. Carla told a story about losing a client and turned to me, unafraid to let herself be the punchline. For the first time, Mom toasted to starting over, and actually meaning it. Dad talked about asking the right questions, not just giving the right advice. When the check came, I reached out, then hesitated, smiling. This one's on all of us. It was a tiny rebellion. A reminder, a table can hold equal ground if you let it. I left that dinner not as a guest, not as a ghost, not even as the family's secret success, but as myself, the punchline, the provider, the survivor, and finally, just another person at the table. Driving home, I didn't care who called or who sulked. I had nothing left to prove. And that one thing, the truth, I'd carried for years, wasn't a weapon anymore. It was a shield, letting me come and go as I pleased. Letting me choose, maybe for the very first time, when to show up and when to simply go home.